राधा कृष्ण चंद्र भगवान की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की जय। श्री गौर निताय की जय। जगत गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय।
कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा
कृष्ण कृष्ण
हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे केशवा माधवा हे कृष्ण मधुसूदना केशवा माधवा हे कृष्ण मधुसूदना केशवा माधवा Krishna Sharanam A very good afternoon to all the dignitaries who have joined us for today's book launch and discussion on Sing, Dance and Pray, the inspirational story of Srila Prabhupada, the Founder-Acharya of ISKCON, written by Shri Hindol Sengupta. I humbly invite all the dignitaries on stage to light the lamp and offer flowers to Srila Prabhupada, the Founder-Acharya of ISKCON. I also invite the monks of ISKCON Bangalore to offer invocation prayers.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Krishnaica Madhamoha Vinashakarin Madrishtigochara Prabho Prabhupada Swamin Dosha Bivritti Paridoshita Manda Buddhe Sanchintayami Charanau Tava Bhakti Heto Vrindavane Ramanareti Prasiddha Bhumau Tatrapi Krishna Balarama Supada Mule Jnanam Param Parama Krishna Sudharmyuduktam Dantastu Deva Prabhupada Namo Namaste 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 Kripa Purna Drishti Namaste Namaste Mahananda Datri Namamo Namama Punarraksha Raksha Prasiddha Prabho Pahi Mam Daksha Daksha Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Vangabhumi Janabhushana Gaura Leela Gauranga Bhava Parisarana Matra Sheela Radha Mukunda Padapatma Mano Vilasin Ananda Rashi Prabhupada Namo Namaste Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you all very much. I now request His Grace Shri Chanchalapathi Dasa, Senior Vice President of ISKCON Bangalore, to deliver the welcome address.
Hare Krishna. This year, ISKCON devotees all over the world are observing the 125th birth anniversary of Srila Prabhupada, the Founder-Acharya of ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada made Krishna and the Hare Krishna mantra well known all over the world. Being a humble, saintly devotee of Krishna, he always remained in the background, and he still remains largely unknown to the world. How Srila Prabhupada traveled to America at the age of 70 with not more than ₹40 with him in a cargo ship, enduring the hardships of 2 heart attacks on board the ship, is a truly inspiring story to be shared with the world. Further, how he established a worldwide movement of Krishna Consciousness in 10 short years, authoring nearly 70 books on the Krishna philosophy, is another startling fact of Srila Prabhupada's life. 6 years back, meeting Millie Aishwarya of Penguin Random House, who is here with us, in a book fair in London, and subsequently meeting Dr. Hindol Sengupta, historian, and writer, who is also here with us, interested in writing about Srila Prabhupada, was indeed an act of serendipity. Today, we are happy to launch the book, Sing, Dance and Pray, an inspiring story of the life of Srila Prabhupada by Hindol Sengupta and published by Penguin Random House in the holy precincts of ISKCON Sri Radhakrishna Mandir. I wish to extend a hearty welcome to Smt Sudha Murty, an educator, writer and philanthropist from our city and well known in our country. She is also a long-time supporter of Akshay Patra activities and a good friend and well-wisher of ISKCON Bangalore Temple. She gave her consent to be part of the book launch only after reading the book. Welcome to you, respected madam. I also wish to extend a warm welcome to Shri S. Somnath, Chairman of ISRO. His organization, ISRO, today makes all of us Indians proud and has given India a proud position in the international space science. We are happy to have him present amidst us to discuss the book on Srila Prabhupada, and welcome to you, sir. I'm also happy to welcome Shri Rickey Kej, internationally renowned, multiple Grammy award-winning music composer and environmentalist. His grandparents and parents are devoted Krishna worshippers from Rajasthan and have been long-time supporters of ISKCON. Despite his worldwide acclaim, he remains a good devotee of Krishna at heart. We are extremely pleased to have him amidst us. I also wish to extend a hearty welcome to many distinguished members in the audience here, members from media, supporters and devotees of ISKCON, and many hundreds of devotees watching this event online. Welcome you all to the launch and discussion of the book, Sing, Dance and Pray, by Hindol Sengupta. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu, for helping us set the context in our own minds for today's event. I request His Grace Shri Madhu Pandit Dasa, the President of ISKCON Bangalore and Chairman of the Akshay Patra Foundation, to present the temple honors to Srimati Sudha Murty, founder of Infosys Foundation, educationist, philanthropist and author. I also request His Grace Shri Madhu Pandit Das Ji to present the temple honors to Shri S. Somnath, Chairman of ISRO. I request the temple honors to be presented to Shri Rickey Kej, Grammy Award winner and music composer. I request the temple honors to be presented to Shri Hindol Sengupta, author and historian, and of course the author of Sing, Dance and Pray. I request the temple honors to be presented to Srimati Milli Aishwarya, publisher at Penguin Random House, India. We will now watch a video introduction to the book Sing, Dance and Pray I request you all to kindly direct your attention to the screen in front of you, closest to you.
At the advanced age of 69, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada crossed the oceans on a cargo ship to spread the message of Lord Krishna in the West. He founded ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. In just over a decade, Hare Krishna became a household name. Beginning with New York in 1966, Srila Prabhupada built a global movement. His movement established more than 100 Krishna temples on 6 continents, introduced the Rath Yatra festival to the West, impressed the beatnik poet Allen Ginsberg, and found a follower in George Harrison of the Beatles. His followers represented a diversity of cultures, races, ethnicities, and nationalities. Srila Prabhupada's best-selling record of the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, attracted followers all around the world and also inspired many other record-breaking albums. He established a publishing house for writing, printing, and distributing books on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. This grew to be one of the world's largest publishers in history, selling tens of millions of copies on Bhakti Yoga, elucidating the science of self-realization. From America to Russia, Australia to Switzerland, Srila Prabhupada created a worldwide movement that has far outlived him. Yet his personal story remains undiscovered. Now, a spellbinding book is set to change that. Sing, Dance and Pray is a fascinating account of Srila Prabhupada's life story by Dr. Hindol Sengupta, India's multiple award-winning historian of religion. It brilliantly showcases Srila Prabhupada's sacred mission to spread Krishna consciousness in all the continents during the most turbulent times of world history. Published by Penguin Random House, this book is already taking the world of religious and cultural history by storm, with fulsome praise pouring in from many distinguished personalities.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Sing, Dance and Pray will enrich your life as you read about Srila Prabhupada's ardent devotion, absolute surrender, and untiring efforts to spread the message of Lord Krishna. Pick up a copy of Sing, Dance and Pray today and let the story of Srila Prabhupada and the grace of Shri Krishna fill your heart with joy. To make the whole world happy in Krishna consciousness was the mission of Srila Prabhupada.
Now, amongst this esteemed audience of dignitaries and guests, I invite His Grace Shri Madhu Pandit Das Ji to please launch the book Sing, Dance and Pray, the inspirational story of Srila Prabhupada, Founder-Acharya of ISKCON, authored by Shri Hindol Sengupta and published by Penguin Random House, India. Thank you all so much. Today we have with us Srimati Millie Aishwarya, publisher at Penguin Random House India, She will moderate the next part of our event, which is a discussion. The floor will be opened to questions from the audience at the end of the discussion. Over to Srimati Millie Aishwarya.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. I think it is a great honor and pleasure for me to be here at the launch of Sing, Dance and Pray by Hindol Sengupta. Some of you here know that it's been my passion project as well, and I've been wanting to publish this book for more than 6 years. So today is a very special day for all of us at Penguin, and I hope all of us here today as well. So congratulations to Hindol, to Shri Madhu Pandit Dasa, all our dignitaries here. Thank you so much for being here. We will straight now get into the conversation because there is so much to talk, but I would like to begin with the author. Hindol, this is your 10th book. Why did you decide to write on Srila Prabhupada, and how has this journey been for you?
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. It's a wonderful, wonderful moment. Thank you very much to ISKCON Bangalore, Srimati Pandita Dasa ji, Chanchalapathi Prabhuji. I feel that in the last 1.5 years I've been immersed really in Krishna consciousness, and it has taken over many, many parts of my life. I want to tell you a story, which is the first story I ever told Chanchalapathi Prabhuji in our first conversation 1.5 years ago. When this book came to be considered, I had a conversation with His Grace Chanchalapathi Prabhuji via video conference. He was in Bangalore, I was in New Delhi. And this is the story that I told him the very first day, and I want to share this with all of you. I would have been a child, maybe I was 5 years old, maybe younger, and I used to live in Calcutta. In Calcutta, where we lived, we shared a boundary wall with the local ISKCON temple. And as a child, I would see the monks singing, playing the cymbals, the mridangam, the prayers, and so on and so forth. And my mother would often place me, just to playfully, on that boundary wall. So I would see my house on one side and the ISKCON temple on the other. Right? And at that time in Calcutta, we would have many vendors. In the old parts of the, in India, you would have vendors coming to sell all kinds of things. Sweetmeats, this, that, all kinds of things, right? There would also be people coming to sell birds, right, in cages. And at that time, people used to keep pets and so on and so forth as birds. So they would come and, they would say, oh, I have a parakeet, I have a parrot, whatever, right? And people would buy. And I still remember my mother would point out to me that every time the ISKCON monks would see these vendors with birds, they would buy those cages. And my mother would first wonder, what would they do with those cages? Until she realized they would just go into their garden and open the cages and set the birds free. Right? And my mother, I remember, and I was very young, what did I understand at that time? My mother told me, and I recently did an interview with Ajtak where I mentioned this. My mother told me at that time, you should make the purpose of your life to open the cages and set people free and never shut the cages. And at that time, to be honest, I never understood this. What did I understand? I was a child, right? But that remained with me. And when this project came, this is the first story I had told His Grace Chanchalapathi Prabhuji. So therein it began. And this story has great relevance because I think Srila Prabhupada's life is in many, many ways to set people free. But what was he setting people free from? He was setting people free, in my humble, understanding, primarily from fear. If you look at it from a historian's perspective, Srila Prabhupada landed in America torn apart with fear. That was the prevailing emotion. It was the civil rights movement, there was anti-Vietnam War, two parts of America, actually not unlike America today in many ways, two parts of America were colliding with one another, right? And there was fear all around. In many ways, he succeeded because his message was to overcome that fear. And to the first hippies in Upper East Side and, Lower East Side who gathered to listen to him, what did they even understand? When I was writing the book, I was thinking to myself, what did these people understand of this elderly monk from India in different clothing, in the New York cold, just singing in front of what would have appeared to them as a little statue, telling them not to eat non-vegetarian food, to sing and pray and light incense sticks. What did these people even understand, right? And it occurred to me by the time I ended the book that he succeeded because he managed to explain to people that they can overcome their fundamental fears. And I think the abiding emotion in many ways of our day-to-day lives is fear. We may not always articulate it, we may not even recognize it, but fear is one of our driving things. And I think Srila Prabhupada's message of singing, dancing and praying is overcoming that fear, opening the cages and letting ourselves free. And the most wonderful message of Srila Prabhupada, which I understood by the time I finished the book, is that when we open the cages and set people free, so to speak, the real person we are really setting free is only ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hindol. I think that's a great way to understand, what we're also trying to do with the book. Sudhaji, you read the book. I wanted to ask you, what was your first reaction, your gut reaction? And do you think there is a timeless quality in Srila Prabhupada's teachings?
Hello? Like most of us, we know ISKCON, we know Akshay Patra. In my case, I know Akshay Patra more than ISKCON. Hello? I know ISKCON and I know Akshay Patra a lot more than ISKCON because we work with them for the last 25 years. I know by and large the philosophy about also Srila Prabhupada because I have visited many of their centers in different countries. New Zealand, like I told you, Dhaka, Australia, in many places. And I used to wonder, who is this one person? It is not organization, it's one person. And I knew that old age he did, that's all I knew. Who could do this kind of a work? And what is his background? How it started? Is it like Ashoka, he saw the war and he decided? What is that incident made him like this? Because it is something, building an institution without money, without connection, without really a material thing. It's a more of a philosophical idea. So I used to read Wikipedia about that, about him. But still I never had a good book on that. So when Chanchalapathi Das told me you should come for the book read, I said I want to read. I should know what the book is, then only I will come. I will never accept without reading, come for a book read. I don't do that. You should have that much sincerity. So when I went through that book, it became so clear who was he as a person. Then when people retire at 69, most people in India, I do not know abroad, in India, at 69 we said, oh, our time is up now, we have to do, okay, only go for a walk, sit with the people in Lal Bagh, join a laughter club, something that kind people do. Or build a house 60-40 with a gopi color, yellow color house, and go to Singapore, Malaysia, or America if your children are there and go for the delivery and help them. Grandchildren, only in that whole circle is limited to that. At 69 you meet your friends, they talk about, I am now 72, so what people talk? Do you have diabetic? Okay, what's the level? Do you have blood pressure? Only all such things only exchanging. Then some people will talk, oh, my grandson got a first rank. Someone says something, that kind of a competition is going on or something. Here is a person who is married, who has children, who knows what life is. It is not that he is in imagination. What is a hard life? What to have a children and what they expect from children. And he is from that samsara. Samsara is the most difficult one actually. He passes through that and then with a heart attack and only sheer belief in Lord. And he goes in a cargo ship. And this is, actually I want to congratulate Hindol without any exaggeration. Like seeing from a distance someone's life, writing with a detachment is very difficult. Because you always have affection. And that's one of the reasons I have not written my biography. People say you must write your biography. I said, number one, I have not done anything much in life. Second thing, without becoming a third person about your life, you have to write. That's a great tapas. And he has done that knowingly well about ISKCON. Brought up, now he told me next door to ISKCON. And with all these things, he writes about a monk, his difficulties, and why he became successful. Logically, he derives that. So I like this book. Very well written, good standard, and more than that, logically very convincing. That's what I wanted to say.
I'll come to Somnath ji now. Somnath ji, you are a man of science. And Srila Prabhupada also, before he started the Krishna movement, he ran a pharmacy business for several years. So, how do you sort of, this whole dichotomy between science and faith, so what do you think, and how a devotee connects, devotion to science? What is your view on that?
Before going into that, let me say thank you, because this is the first time I am able to come to ISKCON, though I have been a visitor to Bangalore for the last 36 years, working in ISRO. So thank you so much for this opportunity. See, you talked about science and belief system. So belief, you mean, I believe that you are talking about spirituality, the connect with God, etc. Anyway, I have a different opinion on using that word belief. But see, all of us were born in certain customs and traditions and families. And I also happened to be born in a village where we were around temples. And when I visited here, I saw Narasimha Murty first, and also Lord Krishna. And I was near a temple where the presiding deities were Narasimha and Krishna. A very big temple, must be 500 years old, where I lived. And we were taught on traditions and values and customs and bhakti. And this is how we grew. And later we had opportunity to learn science. And of course, understand science and apply in our lives. I never could find a disconnect between these two. But later years, when I was a scientist and working in space, naturally I had an inclination to understand what really is the connect. And I started exploring it quite a bit. And of course, through the teachings of various great men that lived before us, Vivekananda for the first time introduced me to the Gita, and I have been a Gita reader for many years. I can only tell you that I don't find absolutely no disconnect between the science and the spiritualism, and also the word you use, the belief system. It's natural for human beings to explore the outer world and also the inner world. And I believe both of them are complementary. And it happens the way you look at it, what exactly you want to explore. As scientists, we explore the outer world and we find great things. And when you go further and further, you find a point that you can't go beyond a point. Then you go back and then go look into thyself and then realize that the microcosm, or you talked about the macrocosm, both represent the same dynamics. And we understand those dynamics are one and the same, then it is enough that you can go into your mind and realize the macro. So this is what the teaching really taught us. And of course, ever in my life I have been trying to understand, but I still am a student, never got the grasp of anything. Let it be science or the understanding of the Almighty, I still have no idea. And I am still exploring, trying to understand. This is also a journey to understand that part of it.
Absolutely. I think Srila Prabhupadaji's life itself, displays that, because he led, he played different roles. He was married, had children, and then of course became a monk and found this extraordinary institution with now millions of followers across the world. So Madhu Pandit Dasji, Prabhu, tell me, what are the core teachings according to you of Srila Prabhupada? And is there one particular thing that really attracted you or drew you to him, that you joined this movement?
As Mr. Somanath said, I'll continue from there. That journey within. I was personally very much chasing after what is the cause of all causes. So, young student, as a college student, I was fully confident that the science, physics will finally tell me what is the cause of all causes. So I was chasing physics, reading so much and all those things. Then I went to IIT. There also I was chasing this. But at one point of time, I realized that science itself has put its boundaries to explore things within the five senses. What we can see, what we can hear, what we touch, smell, taste, what we can verify with our senses. So then at that time, I saw the limitation of the modern science. Then at one point of time, I happened to read Prabhupada's books, and these books were all in our IIT library, they were all in the shelf philosophy section. And they are so colorful books. So one time I took one book, I saw, Vishnu on Garuda. So I said, these are all stories. This is not about truth. I didn't pursue further. After about 2 years of completely getting frustrated with no answers in life, at one point of time, it kind of an existential frustration, too much intellectual activity. I said, whether I live or I don't live, it doesn't make any difference. So I wanted to create, as a young student, I wanted to create sensation in IIT. You can't teach us what is truth. I want to jump off the main building and commit suicide. That day evening when I went to the library, I took Prabhupada's books. Again, the same, impulsively, I took that book and I found that, this is story. Okay, I have stopped searching for truth. Let me now read some stories, light stories. I went and sat, opened Prabhupada's books. After reading 2 pages, I had tears in my eyes. I said, this person knows what is the cause of all causes. I saw that verse, Ishwaraha Paramakrishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. I was shocked with that phrase, Sarva Karana Karanam, because I always thought this all, that way I was not very religious. So I was thinking, a lot of superstition, all those things. Then I started reading Prabhupada's books. I'll continue from what he said. Prabhupada started, many places he was using the word when he was preaching to people. This is a scientific movement. Scientific movement. Scientific movement? Yes. This is a science without boundaries. A science where you can investigate human experience, the soul, what is birth, what is death, what is reincarnation, all scientific explanations that Prabhupada gave really shook me. From then till today, I am actually pursuing this path like a scientist. The laboratory is this body. Just like so many conditions are there the science, chemistry text says you mix hydrogen and water in this particular temperature and all these things, you will find it becomes water. You have to follow those things, then you will verify the truth. Similarly, our great acharyas have said that if you want to discover your true self beyond this body, then there are certain things that do's and don'ts. Temperature, pressure, in the same way. No intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling. You have to put, because your laboratory is your body. What you do with your body is important. You cannot do whatever you want with your body and say that I can realize myself. So these are some of the things that really impressed me about Prabhupada's the scientific approach. Because according to Prabhupada, scientific approach means it is a scientific temperament. That is important. Not what the present science is or later on what it would be. Human beings' scientific temperament is universal and it will continue till the person finds the truth. If somebody really wants to pursue the Param Satya or what is the cause of all causes, which is very unique quality in every human being. A human being wants to know what is beyond all this. Where did I come from? Where do I go after birth, death? What are the laws that is making everyone grow old? Who is this? What is this? These are all things which I picked up from Prabhupada's books, because Prabhupada represents a great tradition of Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, where all these truths are actually given to us. It is said to be the descending process of knowledge. This parampara means the knowledge comes from God Himself and it flows down. And different people interpret differently, but the source is all the transcendental source, which is beyond our. In modern science, the process of acquiring knowledge is an ascending process. We take everything from our senses and try to assemble and try to understand what the world is. But in the case of the Vedic way of understanding, is a descending process of knowledge. Doesn't mean you simply swallow whatever is said. Here also there is experimentation. As I said, I am experimenting with this truth day and night for last 40 years. So here also there is experimentation, or there is a hypothesis. You read something, Krishna says, the soul never dies in the book. Okay, this is a hypothesis. What are all the various aspects in which I can actually realize what this truth is? So, in that sense, it is a very scientific process. Prabhupada has presented, without limiting to modern science, he has presented a scientific method of Krishna consciousness. And beyond, in a sense, it is non-sectarian knowledge. Scientific knowledge is non-sectarian because it's about truth. So about the soul, truth about the soul, truth about the body, truth about realities of life. And that's I would say, that is the essential message that Prabhupada has given to the world. Really a cultural ambassador of India to the rest of the world.
Ricky, I wanted to ask you, about your association with ISKCON and the Krishna movement, because your family has also been involved for several years. So what were your early impressions and, influence of ISKCON on you?
Yelrigo Namaskara, everyone. So basically, firstly, I'd like to address the title of the book, Sing, Dance and Pray. Because I remember many years ago, I had seen Nelson Mandela, say that it's singing and dancing that makes him at peace with the world. And that was something that really resonated with me at that particular point in time, because for me, my spirituality, my devotion, my peace with the world happens through music. Whenever I'm creating music, that's when I'm most at peace. And I believe that music is pretty much my religion, that's what I believe. And to see that singing and dancing and prayer, you know, as the title of the book. I thought that itself was quite a 360-degree approach to life in itself. So congratulations on that. It's absolutely amazing. And so about Swami Prabhupada, what I can say is that for me, his life has been completely about breaking cultural barriers. Because being a musician, we're always told that if you want to travel the world, and if you want to, and if you want to gain recognition all over the world, if you want the world to listen to your music, then you have to make Western music, you know. You have to create music in English. You have to create music which is hip-hop music or pop music. But then I realized that that's not the case at all. To get your music recognized all over the world, you need to dig deeper into your own roots and figure out what is it that makes you Indian. What is it that makes you culturally an Indian, and your soul an Indian, and dig deep into that and make that kind of music. And that's exactly what I did. And if you look at people before me, like people like Pandit Ravi Shankar, people like Ustad Zakir Hussain, people like Pandit Vishwamohan Bhatt, they are the only people who have actually gained cultural recognition, international recognition through their music, and what they were making is purely Indian music, you know. And when a Bollywood musician plays anywhere else in the world, it's only the Indian diaspora that shows up for those concerts. They're able to fill up stadiums, they're able to fill up auditoriums, they're able to get great audiences, but it's only the Indian diaspora that actually shows up. It's people who are culturally Indian and showcasing our Indian culture to the rest of the world who have actually been successful all over the world. And the greatest example of that is Swami Prabhupada. Because as Sir said, that he was the greatest cultural and traditional ambassador of India to the rest of the world. And in fact, at 1965, when he went to America and he did all of this stuff, he was quite a pioneer, because he sort of opened the door, and people like me and people like other musicians, people, filmmakers, artists, other spiritual gurus basically slipped in through that door that he actually opened, you know. And he made Indian culture pretty much accessible and and mainstream, through his endeavors all over the world. So I would say that he's quite a cultural pioneer, and he has led the way to showcase to us that if you want international recognition, then you should not be looking outwards. Dig deep into your roots, figure out what it is that makes you identify as an Indian, and showcase that to the rest of the world.
No, absolutely. I think music is such an important part of this whole movement, and that was more my second question to you later, but I'm glad we got into it now. There is a quote in the book, which I was thinking about, and I got reminded of a few days back, seeing what's happening all across the world, and I like to read that out, because my question to Chanchalapathi Prabhu is related to it. The effect of the present day civilization is just like that. This is actually the civilization of nescience or illusion, and therefore civilization has been turned into militarization. Everyone is fully concerned with the comforts of the body and everything related with the body, and no one is concerned with the spirit. How do you see this quote from Srila Prabhupada in this present context and the world we live in?
Thank you, Millie, for that question. In one of the important things about Srila Prabhupada's presentation of the Krishna philosophy, the Gita philosophy, all over the world, Srila Prabhupada did not present Krishna philosophy within a religious framework alone. He saw that this philosophy, this understanding, this perspective can have far-reaching impact in other aspects of life as well. So that's why Prabhupada is pointing out in that quote you read, that Prabhupada is saying this is a civilization of illusion and not in touch with reality. Because there are actually two realities in this world. There is a material reality that we all see, perceive. We have been discussing how science studies that. There's another reality, the spiritual reality, the spirit reality, the reality of spirit, which is not factored into in modern thinking, planning, in public policies and such things. So Srila Prabhupada saw that this philosophy can influence a certain perspective of life and can bring an enriching, more positive influence in all facets of life. Today what we see in the world is, because the spiritual perspective is missing, there is consumerism, there is exploitation, and trying to maximize wealth and so many things. And because of which we see what's happened to the world, what's happened to the earth, what's happened to what we have done to the earth, what we have done to water, to air, to soil. In every way we are messing around, and we have people like Rickey, as an environmentalist going on championing that we shouldn't be doing this, we should save the environment. So, Srila Prabhupada saw that this philosophy of Krishna consciousness, this understanding is so fundamental, and it can influence politics, it can influence science, it can influence business, it can influence common man's life, so that we look at the world in a different way, rather than just an exploitative way and just try to make money and enjoy the senses and then die one day. There is something much more than that this life is. So Prabhupada presented that perspective. I think that is very relevant, which is very important, very significant, and very enriching.
No, absolutely. Hindol, I would like to come back to, how this journey began, how the movement began. So tell us about how Srila Prabhupada, came to America and he founded this movement with almost nothing, I think 50 rupees at the age of 70.
I think if you really look at his journey coming into America, there are a few things that I think are worth understanding about his journey. We already spoke about the fact that he was already by all counts, an elderly man by the time he arrived in America. But he was also an infirm man. He had already gone through heart attacks or strokes in the journey to America. So, in order to understand the hurdles he overcame, we have to understand that not only was he an elderly man, he was also an infirm man. He was a man who was dealing with that extreme cold of New York. Anybody who's lived in New York can tell you that it's really a cold of a different kind, right? For the first time. Neither his diet nor his clothes had any connection with the weather that he had to deal with. I mentioned in my book, and one of the professors who sort of gave a kind endorsement noted, and in our email exchange also noted, that he arrived in New York, which was very dirty. He had never seen and this is, Rickey was talking about cultural, similarities and differences. We tend to think of the East as cluttered, the East as dirty, and the West as sanitized, right? But interestingly, when I wrote the book, I thought to myself, but in Srila Prabhupada's world, the East was not cluttered, because he was going from the sanctified world of the temple, the cleanliness of a temple, of his small room, of his neatness, of his punctuality with everything, to the deep disclutter of New York. Dust everywhere, pollution everywhere. We spoke about the environment. Pollution everywhere, strife everywhere, riots everywhere. So it was the West in the world of Srila Prabhupada which was far more cluttered than the East. And he was bringing in many ways the sanctity of the East into the clutter of the West. I'm also the biographer of Swami Vivekananda, and we talk about how Vivekananda was the empire talking back, right? Srila Prabhupada was the Eastern aesthetics talking back to the West. He was showing a better way, how to eat. And all these ideas we think the West does better. Clean food, clean water, clean spaces, a healthy way of living, better technology. And Srila Prabhupada was saying, look, actually, I have the better technology. It is by following the path that I am showing you, you can have a better life.
And think about it. Today we talk about all of this when, there are yoga movements around the world. But this is not that time. This is a different age where this kind of talking back of Eastern aesthetics to the West is unimaginable. Right? So these are the nuances of his journey which are unmistakable. And I think really very little work has happened in understanding these things. Presenting his message in a particular way. We talk about communication, right? And I've written in my book that there's a great lesson to learn from Srila Prabhupada. Whenever he didn't want to answer a question, or if he thought the question was too pedestrian, he would never be rude. He would just start singing the Hare Krishna mantra. I wish television debates in India today followed that lesson. Right? And look, think about it. This, what I just mentioned, is not just a joke. One of the most influential cultural figures of that time, Allen Ginsberg, actually applied this. And that video is still on YouTube. There's a famous debate that Allen Ginsberg has with, Buckley Jr., right? One of the great young conservatives. They're having this debate about where America should go. And all of it is, televised. William Buckley Jr. and Allen Ginsberg. And, Allen Ginsberg has been asked that, what all you liberals say about the war is not right, and, America has to take the forefront and so on and so forth. And Allen Ginsberg is saying, no, the world must get peace. And at some point he's been asked all these personal questions. He just pulls out a harmonium from under the seat and starts singing Hare Krishna. So, you have to join the dots, as a writer, as a historian, you join the dots of the story and see what's going on. And then you realize that these are the ways the message percolated. It's not just he landed up one day and told them, oh, you should do this, and it just happened, right? These are the ways in which the communication, the message percolated into the hearts and minds of people who had no connection whatsoever. Far from any connection to Krishna consciousness, no connection of India with India. Maybe some of those people wouldn't even be able to show where Delhi is in a map. Or Vrindavan is in a map. Right? So I find all of these aspects really fascinating. Because we talk about, cultural exchange and the East talking back so much today. But this is what's going on when Srila Prabhupada is doing these things, right? And that's why when the rathas appeared on the streets of San Francisco, people looked at them and they must have thought that this is the greatest carnival the world had ever seen, right? And it was a place full of, please remember, you have to understand, there were already carnivals happening, all these, music festivals, all related to the Vietnam protest. Srila Prabhupada took all of that and said, but we have something better. What do we have? We have a Rath Yatra, which is bigger than any carnival you guys have ever seen. Right? So it's an incredible story.
No, absolutely. I think we're all here today because of him and what he managed to achieve. I'll just take up a couple of questions and then we will, open it for the audience and you can ask your questions. Sudhaji, I wanted to ask you one question because you're a writer of so many books and it's been translated into multiple languages. And Srila Prabhupada ji also left behind, a huge body of work. So what is it about Krishna that, is special to you and that you perhaps see in the life of Srila Prabhupada ji as well?
Sir, individual I feel, because Krishna can be defined by different people different way. Where, listening to our scientist Somnath, and I realized where science fails, faith begins. Okay, so your faith, the way you conceive Krishna, the way you believe, it depends. Actually, my granddaughter's name is Krishna only. I named because I love that whole character so much. So for me, he is one of the, for me, it's a very individual opinion. For me, it's one of the smartest, very powerful extremely compassionate character in our Bhagavata. I consider Krishna as that. Thank you.
Madhu Panditji, it's immense occasion today. We have a great audience and we have the book finally out today. How do you feel and, what is it that you want to say to our audience today?
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Hindol Sengupta for having interwoven the story, which even many of us who are in ISKCON, when they see all these things together, a different picture, when they are connected the way he said, it's really amazing work, amazing work. He has brought out that personality of Srila Prabhupada. He didn't influence these people just by giving lectures in conferences or, No. He taught them, he transplanted that vibration of India into the midst of the Western culture. And that's been brought out so well in this book. It's a transplanting Indian culture. It is not not merely a philosophical movement that Prabhupada set up. It taught them how to cook. It taught them how to dance. It taught them how to be clean. Everything that Prabhupada, because Prabhupada represented a person who represents our Sanatana Dharma, way of life. So that way of life, he went there and very, very holistically, he planted that culture there, and that is very difficult because many times when you think of biographies of monks, we always think of lecture giving. They gave a very powerful lecture. No, this is not that. This is the story. Not a lecture, it's a story. And that is, I have to congratulate once again Hindol for this wonderful thing.
Thank you so much. With that, we open the floor for questions. So if you have any question that you want to ask, please raise your hand and we will pass the mic around. Any questions from anyone? You have the opportunity here with our esteemed panelists here today. Okay. Please pass the mic to the gentleman in yellow.
Hare Krishna to all the devotees and assembled dignitaries. My name is Chandrasekhar and I have a question for the author, Shri Hindol Sengupta ji. And my question is, I know you have written a fantastic book and it will be definitely eye-opener for so many of devotees. But my question to you is that if you can just highlight few of the greatest qualities of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ji.
So I think thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Thank you for the question. I think one of the things that you can absolutely not avoid when you talk about the story of Srila Prabhupada is that his journey was very, very interesting and unique. In many ways, Srila Prabhupada lived what we would today call a civilian life, a full civilian life, so to speak, right? He had seen the national movement. I mentioned in the book that he had closely seen the national movement. As a student, he was a near contemporary of Subhash Chandra Bose. He had seen Gandhi urge, non-cooperation. He had seen the burning of, Western clothes in bonfires. He had seen all of this. He had seen the national movement. And in that sense, he had lived through history. If you look at the entire journey, from there, throughout his entire life, and then, of course, going into America at such a turbulent time. One of the greatest qualities of Srila Prabhupada is that his ability was to take his message and transcend history. You see, there's one thing to be caught up in the history that he was part of. And he was part of so much history. If you read the book, I mean, he's consistently part of, what's happening in Calcutta, what's happening in Varanasi, what's happening in other parts of India. Then, of course, all the turbulence in America, in Bombay later, and all kinds of things, right? But through it all, he was able to consistently pivot his message to a level that his message transcends the boundaries of history. That his message is not confined to a particular time and space. His message is not confined to a particular geography or history for that matter. His message is eternal. I think that is a really, really interesting trait of Srila Prabhupada, right? Srila Prabhupada, of course, is a historical figure, but his message transcends history. And if there's one big thing to note about him, I think that's one of the biggest things to note about him. The other, in a more prosaic way, is institution building. I tell some of my audience, I've started telling some of my audiences, if you look at his life, he built an institution. He didn't know how to navigate, how to create an organization in America or England or, Switzerland or Australia or Africa. He built today what we would call a global institution with chapters in many, many countries. That's not easy even for people who come with huge VC funding, multiple MBA, MBA degrees, a network of Ivy Leagues. People like that fail in doing that, right? How did this monk who came, basically was living in a temple, suddenly went to America and really negotiate the minutiae of detail, legal, logistical, real estate, taxation laws, real estate laws, all kinds of things, which is why reading his letters are absolutely bewildering and fascinating, because he's discussing taxation in one, somebody is telling his devotees, this land cannot be given, or this building cannot be given, some real estate broker is trying to cheat them, and you think to yourself, how is this man dealing with all of this? It would be impossible for a Ivy League graduate with VC funding to deal with all this, right? How's he doing it? And plus on top of that, there is the cultural difference, right? Because there's racism, you sense that in many places there would have been some latent racism, all kinds of things. A building that they wanted for a temple, the landlord would try to cheat them because he would think, oh, this is someone, this alien person, this foreigner, maybe I can extract more from him, right? Maybe I can arm twist them because they don't know the laws. Imagine. You try doing something like this in Bangalore or Delhi today. Forget in America and England and Australia and Switzerland, right? It's absolutely incredible. So institution building is a very, very important lesson from Srila Prabhupada's life. How do you create an institution? How do you ensure that that institution is able to grow very swiftly? I used to be a business journalist, we talk about growth continuously. One day I will sit down and analyze what was the, year on year, YOY as we would say, growth of ISKCON under Srila Prabhupada, That would be really interesting to see. It's incredible. These large volumes of money, of course, at some point, because all these temples were being built, thousands of people were coming, monks had to be trained, monks who had no idea and conception of India. So training, today we talk so much about HR, how do you create good human resources, right? All these lessons are embedded in this story. It's just that we have not spent enough time trying to study this story, right? And I think there are many, many layers of such lessons embedded in this wonderful story.
I just want to add, Hindo, while you said Prabhupada was doing all that, and in the middle of the night, he would go back to those ancient Sanskrit texts, translating them word to word from Sanskrit to English and writing commentaries, staying up all night doing that.
And I think it's absolutely, since His Grace has mentioned this is absolutely worth underlining. You know, we talk about content today. You know, content. People create content, and how do you manage content? How you do disseminate? You know, we have Millie, our publisher. You know, one of the biggest publishing houses in the world, right? And something like Penguin has taken hundreds of years to be created, right? So much effort, so many hundreds of years, so many CEOs, all kinds of things. Srila Prabhupada created a global publishing empire within 10 years, between the age of 70 to 80. Not just that, when publishing empires, if you think about it, people who created Penguin or HarperCollins or whatever, all the big publishing houses in the world, those people were not doing the writing and the translation themselves. Think about it.
I wish.
You think about it, right? Those people were just creating it. They had authors, they would get authors. Here was a man who was actually creating the content himself.
Yes.
Not only managing the publication and distribution and sales and all of that, but creating the content himself.
And that was not the main thing he was doing. He was doing it at night, you know.
And all night, right? So we talk about tenacity today, right? And then, you know, inner strength and so on and so forth, and resilience. This is incredible. You know, people ask me, people ask me when this book got published, oh, you've written 10 books. I think in my mind, Srila Prabhupada at, 73 and 74, sitting in some cold room somewhere, eating like one meal barely, dealing with the affairs of ISKCON the whole day, doing all the pujas, and then working all night. Right? It's incredible.
We have one more question here.
Excuse me, I have a question if I may.
Sure, please go ahead.
My question is for Hindol. Congratulations on a very beautifully written book. Sudha ma'am made a very pertinent and very interesting observation about your book to the effect that it's very difficult to logically, objectively, and scientifically convince the reader about a very, very real, very transcendental success story. So my question to you is a little banal, but it's of great interest to me. Does the professional training of a historian clash with the passion of a writer, or does it complement it?
You will have to please read the book and send me a mail on what you thought.
I want to know your thoughts, please.
No, look, it's very clear. I never wanted to write a hagiography. I don't write hagiographies. I'm very clear about that. I don't write that, right? And in my first conversations, I had told His Grace Chanchalapathi Prabhuji that I do not write hagiography. So if it's a hagiography that you want, somebody to write, then I am the wrong person to, inspire and have conversations with, because that's not the sort of book. And I was delighted to hear that he absolutely said that's exactly what we don't want. We want you to bring what you understand and your perspective into this, because there has been a lot of Srila Prabhupada himself was a prolific writer, right? He himself wrote voluminously. But I think what the story needed was an external point of view, was the craft of a historian, right? To join the dots. You see, because if you see, if you read a lot of the ISKCON internal material, many books that have been written by monks, they are looking at, and it's very interesting, they're going into great detail and stuff, but they are looking at it in a very sort of straight, narrow prism. What we don't get is the whys. The historian asks why. Okay, you're saying this man did this at this time, but why? What was happening in society around him? Who were the people he was dealing with? What were the pulls and pressures in his life? What could he have been thinking, right? Those whys are not entirely clear. So, a devotee, if I may say so, often doesn't ask the why, right? But a historian devotee does, right? Only a devotee does not ask the why, but a historian devotee asks that why. On why? Why is this man thinking like this? What are his pulls and pressures, his influences? Because after all, as divine a figure as he is, he's also a human being simultaneously, living in the world. He's not sitting in as a hermit in some distant Himalayan cave. He's living in the world, right? When his Rath Yatra is blocked by police, his devotees are coming to him and asking, what do we do? Now, what does this man know about San Francisco police? Right? But he's dealing with it. that why is the historian's craft, right?
Yeah, again, the question is for Hindol. When we all been educated, we think we have a word called achievement. We all are driven towards a word called achievement. I've read a story in Kannada, then I thought I understood the meaning difference between achievement and accomplishment. Do you think this is accomplishment or something more? The journey of Prabhupada.
No, I will take off from what Sir was saying. Look, I don't believe you can, and let me now go to maybe a slightly higher plane. We can sit down all day and decipher, okay, now this was you can make a, management grid and say, this was the organization structure, and this is why it worked, and he put this kind of people here, all of that. But at some point, we have to have the humility to realize that without a certain divine grace, this is just not possible. It's not possible. I can sit down with you all day and bring in my fortune training and my Columbia Business School training and this, that, and the other, and Oxford training, and explain to you that, well, this is where the funds came from, this is how funds were raised, this is how they were deployed, all kinds of things. We can make charts and graphs, but we must, and especially as we sit in a temple, we must have that little humility, should I say, to understand that divine grace plays a role. And as a practicing Hindu, I really believe we are surrounded by grace all the time. Now, can we recognize it? Can we access it? Maybe sometimes not, right? But this is not possible without grace. It's not possible. No human being can build this without grace. So we have to have, whether it's accomplishment or whether it's achievement, beyond accomplishment and beyond achievement, there is something called grace. And we must have the humility to accept
that. Beautifully put.
And Hindol got also that grace, otherwise he couldn't have written this.
Absolutely. I
have no doubt. His grace is
completely
absolutely
agree.
right. And, my publisher is here, so, this will be verified. We discussed my 9th book came out in 2018. I was at that time, I was about to leave Columbia and go off to Oxford. My publisher and my agent is not here, but my publisher and my agent and I discussed so many projects. I cannot tell you, 4 or 5 projects. Something was almost done, completed, almost about to get published. But I always had this feeling in my heart, my 10th book will be special. I don't know how it will be special, but it will be special. And Millie will vouch for this. None of those projects finally saw the light of day.
Yes.
Books I have completed writing, for some reason or the other, we never published. Whereas suddenly this project came and it just effortlessly happened.
It happened in almost 6 months, and I've seen this before my eyes, so I can vouch for it. I think there was some force, some grace, whatever you might call it, behind this, and the book is the proof, I think. So I think we're all...
I just want to take 2 minutes of everyone's time to say how the divine grace is. It is my personal thing, but I want to tell to the public today. I am a devotee of Tirupati Venkatramana from the beginning. That is our family god. So whenever I used to see him, I said, I will never give you gold. I said, why? You are Lakshmi's husband, you have so much money. And because there is a lot of gold in Somnath temple, so the people came outside and took it away. Better not to give any gold to a temple. This is my personal strong belief. So I said, Lord, I will serve you in many other ways, but never I will give you gold. And I am now 72 years old, and from the age of 3 I am going to Tirupati. Once I was a member there, and I went to the temple, 5 in the morning, and they were doing this Ashtamandana. Then that will clean below the Lord's feet, they will clean everything and close it with the Desi cement. And the Pandit came out, the Pujari came out and said, is there anybody? There was nobody. 5 in the morning, and that is the Ashtabandhana, they close everything. Only I was there. He said, ma'am, do you have any gold? I said, I told, I don't wear, normally I don't wear gold, much gold. Then suddenly I remembered my secretary kept 6 bangles on that day. Normally I wear only 1 bangle. Since 6 bangles. In all 40 seconds it happened. He said, if you want, you can give 2 gold bangles to Lord. I just removed 2 bangles. There was no time to think. They washed it and they put it below his feet. And that third awaz came, that it went down below his feet. They cemented it. Next 45 minutes I cried. I said, why I came on that day? Why did I wear 6 bangles on that day? And why I told him I will not give you gold? And why did he take from me? He could have taken from anybody. He could have said, I want gold bangles. Thousands of trucks will come tomorrow. I cried for 45 minutes. I said, I don't know. You tell me logically, like what you said. You have been trained in Columbia. You have been trained in IISc, IIT. All my logic, everything. No logic was working there. I cried. My husband said, there's nothing great giving you 2 bangles. 45 minutes you could sit in front of him. That is more miracle. In front of Lord at Tirupati, you are sitting 45 minutes. That time I realized, Karanam Karanam Karta. You are the one you give the problem, you are the one you give the solution. You are responsible for everything. It is I who think I have achieved, I have accomplished, I have written this book. None of them are true. It is He, Krishna, wanted this book. It is through him you got this offer. You are only a scriber. He came into your mind, he made you to write. That's why I believe it is his wish, it is your hand. I believe in it. Thank you.
Sudhaji, I want to say something to you. I cannot agree more with you. I cannot agree more with you. I was saying to another audience, I was earlier in Bangalore, so I was saying to a smaller audience, that look, writing a book like this changes you also. You know, we talk about it, oh, the book came out, so many people liked it, bought it, sold it. But the person who's writing it also changes. It's not possible not to change, right? It's impossible not to change. So I want to share with you and the audience 2 things that have changed in my life through the writing of this book. I have taken up chanting. So I now carry, as many people of my age and profession, I also have a pretense of being busy all the time. So I carry my mala, japmala in my office bag. So so that's one change. The second change is, since I'm a communicator, I was telling Navina Prabhuji one day, people say LOL, young people say laugh out loud. No, we should have a new acronym, LIL, leave it to the Lord. So I think to myself, that's another change. I'm an analyzer by nature, right? In every problem I say, okay, now I will analyze it and I'll figure out the solution. One change that has happened with me through the book is, I find myself thinking, okay, like you said, now you have given this problem, you solve it. It is your problem. I am out of this, You've given, you solve it, please forgive me, I'm out of this. And I leave it to the Lord.
Well, with that, we come to the end of the panel discussion.
Hare Krishna.
One more question. Okay, we'll take one last question. We're running out of time.
This is for Rickey Kej, sir.
Can you stand up, please? I can't.
Sir. So it's a request come question. Can you make an album with Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and make it popularized in the whole world?
I've already I've already done that actually. I did a song with Shankar Mahadevan. This is about, I think you guys know about it. I did a song with Shankar Mahadevan, which is about the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. It became quite popular. You can go onto YouTube and you can watch that.
Thank you, but unfortunately it hasn't become so popular because, layman like me hasn't, haven't even
no,
seen.
millions of people have watched it.
Oh, I'm so sorry about it.
It's gotten more than about 100 million streams. Okay, yeah. So that what. And the thing is that, we can make many more for sure. But since I have the mic, I just wanted to say one last thing, that I think it's extremely important for this book to come out, because in India, especially in India, we have this habit that, that we follow people, but we do not know more about their life. And, and I think this is a very good step in that direction, that we should know more about, or sometimes we follow people and we don't know much about their art, Like, for example, since I'm a musician, I'll bring up the example of Pandit Ravi Shankar. Pandit Ravi Shankar, everybody know him as being one of the greatest sitar players in the world. A person who single-handedly made the sitar popular all over the world, and everybody knows who his daughters are, Anushka Shankar, Nora Jones, Bharat Ratna. But I ask anybody in this audience, name one song of Pandit Ravi Shankar. Name one song. Okay, forget that. Name an album of his. Hum a tune of his. Nobody knows. So that is basically a syndrome that we are following in our country. It's the same with Srila Prabhupada, that we need to know more about his life in order to purify our own lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ricky. All right, so with this, I know you all have a lot of questions. So Hindol is going to be here. You can ask him. But with that, we come to the end of today's discussion. Thank you so much for being such a lovely audience. I hope you all read the book. And then you'll have, I think, many more questions as well. Hindol will be signing copies too. So if you want a signed copy today, you can get it. And it's your lucky day. So thank you so much. And thank you to all our panelists today. It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you for your time and your experiences.
We thank Srimati Mili Aishwarya for thoughtfully moderating today's discussion on the book Sing, Dance and Pray, and touching upon so many inspiring aspects about the life, teachings and message of Srila Prabhupada, the Founder-Acharya of ISKCON. We have been very privileged to witness such an engaging and enriching conversation amongst the dignitaries on the dais about the effect that Srila Prabhupada has had in bringing Lord Krishna closer to each and every one of us. I thank all the guests who have gathered today, both online and offline, here in front of the stage. You are all very fortunate souls to get to listen and participate in this enlivening discussion about Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for being here today. A special thanks to the media for joining us on this auspicious occasion. A big thank you to the volunteers, monks, and staff of ISKCON Bangalore for tirelessly working to support any endeavor in making ideas come to life through events like this one. With this, we come to the end of today's program. To our dignitaries, a heartfelt thanks once again for your valuable time and presence. Wishing you a very good afternoon. Hare Krishna. I request the audience to kindly remain in your places. I have a few announcements. This is going to take a little bit of time, so do stay where you are. Firstly, actually, today's event has not yet concluded for all of you. Yes, we have a book signing by the author of Sing, Dance and Pray, Shri Hindol Sengupta ji. If you wish to get an autographed copy of the book, you can get yourself a copy of Sing, Dance and Pray from outside the eastern counter, outside this auditorium. You can get yourself a copy, come here, come onto the stage, get it signed, and then you can leave from the west door, which is on that side. So that is our exit door for now. You may come to the stage in a queue and then exit out from that side. So entrance here, exit there. Lunch prasadam is being distributed at two venues. Regular grain prasadam is being served at